Hey, Hakim and Daniel. Whenever you guys are ready, you can come back and start to have participants waiting at the lobby.
Sure.
Right. You can start time, you know. So, hi, Peter. Hi, Peter. Hi, Haro. Hi, Akma. So make sure that you guys can hear us and hello. Hi, Panama. Can you try to say something? Just want to make sure that we could hear you.
Hi.
Hi, good. Hello, I'm JC from Star Media Group. Akma is from Bank Rocket. He's manager in charge of the PMO office. Let's see who else we have on the line. We have Pyro. Hi, Pyro. Cool. Thanks for turning your keep turning your webcam on. Just keep your webcam on all the time. So Hyro is from Bank Rocket as well. He's the manager in charge of PMO office. I'm JC from Star Media Group, and I noticed we have here Peter from CIMB and Yangming from Malaysia Reports. Hello, can you guys hear us?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right, Yangming. Just to make sure that okay. Thanks for turning your webcam on. All right, JC from Star Media Group. So Yeming is the CIO of Malaysia Reports. I have here with me our three speakers of today. I've got Sohan from Star Media Group. I also have Akim from Forrester. I have Daniel Ng from ServiceNow. And I noticed we also have our Dato' Swaran. Can you hear us?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, Dato' Swaran, do mind you can turn your webcam on to keep this session lively. So Dato' Iswaran is from MBank. We also have, let's see, Stephen Low. Hi, Mr. Stephen.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Stephen.
Morning. Hi.
From CIMB, you guys could turn on your webcams to keep this conversation lively. We have, I'm JC from Star Media Group. I have here our guest speakers of today. I've got Aswan from Star Media Group. I have Akim from Forrester. I've got Daniel from ServiceNow.
Morning all.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Ellie from Aspiro. Thank you for joining us again. How are you? Just to make sure your webcam and your mic is working. This we also have Norhas Linda. Hi, Norhas Linda. Can you hear us? I think you're muted. Hi, Ellie. We can see you.
Hello, hi. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, Norhas Linda. Just to make sure your mic is working.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so Norhas Linda is from Bangor. Yeah, she's head of the PMO office of Bangor. Yeah. So just we'll wait for the rest of them to dial in. We'll give it about 5 minutes and we can start at about 10:05. So yeah, gents, you can free to chit chat with each other while we wait for the rest to dial in.
Morning, everyone. I'll be asking you guys some questions too. So hopefully you'll give us the benefit of your own experiences as well and your challenges that you hope to surmount. So
good morning. Akim Grants from Forrester. Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Someone just popped in for a second there, Surin.
Surin.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
Hi, morning. Surin is from British American Tobacco. Surin is in charge of global head of cloud and automation. JC from Star Media Group. We have from Sumbi Industries. And we also have our speakers from Aswan, who's from Star Media Group, who'll be moderating our today's roundtable discussion. We have Akim from Forrester. We've got Daniel from ServiceNow as well. As I mentioned, we'll probably give you a few more minutes so that we can start today's session.
You want to check Peter Tay is to.
Hey, Peter, just checking in to see if you're all right. Probably Peter's cigarette break, maybe.
Yep. Nowadays there are too many things going on. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about going on
Friday,
multiple Zoom WebEx calls, right?
Yep.
and all keeping an eye on the news as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like it's changing every
news.
minute. Every minute it's changing.
What
And
is
the numbers.
stars? What is stars insight in
Uh,
politics? What's the insight from stars?
I'm afraid to say anything these days. But I think that all important meeting of the rulers on Friday is what we have to wait for. Politicians, the MPs, and political heads may say whatever they want, but that meeting is the one that's going to decide who our next PM is going to be.
Yeah, they have until 4 p.m. today to submit the names.
Yeah, they'll be going by facts that we have gathered so far. They're all going business as usual, are trying to re-establish the old political structure. Well, we'll see what happens. It's unprecedented times anyway.
Where we are right now, everything is unprecedented.
Yes.
Yeah, just make sure everything is BAU lah. I mean, the worst thing you can do now is that you have SOPs that nobody wants to change. We are all screwed lah.
It'll be interesting to see if this get delayed and whether the country actually becomes better.
I think it's mainly, every time we have a change in administration, there is a period of optimism that things will change now. So I think that can actually be helpful in this case. We all have something to look forward to. But then performance will matter in the end. And, you all managers, what it means.
Yep.
They make all sorts of promises, but execution is key.
Mm.
All right, I guess we are about to start soon. I noticed good old friend Adrian from CIMB, JC here from Star. I also noticed Mrs. Sunta from DKSH. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. So notice we have.
Sashidaran just joined us. Exiata.
Hi, Sashi from Aziara. Thank you for joining us. All right, I guess a couple of friends from CIMB keep turning it's not turning on their webcam. Hope everything is all right over your end. But most important, just to make sure that your mic is working and you could hear us clearly. All right.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Just that save some bandwidth for the kids, for the school.
Yeah.
No,
Office every day.
working from home. The most scary one is actually getting the kids online as well.
Yeah.
Right. We have Terence from British American Tobacco as well. Thank you for joining us. Good morning to all of you.
Morning, guys. Hope all
morning,
is staying
everyone.
safe.
Good morning.
Ellie, Miss Lloyd, someone just ran past your webcam at the back.
Yeah, that's my children.
Yeah, I can see that.
Let's
Okay,
swap
alright.
key stakeholders.
Yes.
Good.
It's,
Thank
we're doing this all for them after all.
Indeed.
Okay, all right, cool. Thank you, ladies and gents. I guess we're good to kick off. Just a gentle reminder that that session will be recorded, but strictly for internal reference only. Once again, my name is JC from Star Media Group Events team. We trust you and your loved ones are keeping safe, well, and more importantly, I think we gotta stay sane too in this very odd episode since the pandemic started. Well, I guess you and I, all of us, will get through this together. But most important, thank you very much for taking some time out from your busy schedule to join us at this very timely virtual gathering. We at Star Media Group are very grateful for the kind support by ServiceNow for coming together to make this executive roundtable a reality. At today's session, we will learn how and why the industry is turning to change management and automation. And we will also be exploring and discussing how you can harness AI-powered service operations to tackle the top IT service priorities of cost and risk reduction for your organizations, and to deliver exceptional employee experiences 24/7. Now, let's have a quick look at today's program. I can assure you that we'll be keeping this session short and simple, but very precise and valuable for each one of you. We will kick off today's program with a panel discussion with our guest speaker from Forrester, to be joined by a ServiceNow senior representative. Then we will jump straight to the roundtable discussion, which will take about 50 minutes. At the roundtable discussion, there will be a short survey, and upon completion of the short survey, you will stand a chance to win a very special gift, and the prize winner will be announced towards the end of the session. We shall wrap up at around 11:15 a.m. as I promised you when we invite you to join the session. Just a few quick housekeeping matters before we begin. It would be super helpful for one another if you can keep this session lively by making sure that your webcam is turned on at all time possible. But do mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We know that there's always that unforeseen risk of any live online event. I'm pretty sure most of us have attended webinar for the last 1.5 years. Please be very patient if you experience any technical or internet glitches. If you need any assistance from us, please check with our events crew. Most importantly, let's keep this session casual and interactive. Feel free to jump in to share your thoughts during discussion. Don't be shy. If you're worried about disrupting the ongoing conversation, you may also raise your hand virtually by clicking the reaction emoji at the bottom of your screen, and then click raise hand. We'll be able to notice that you raise your hand, and we will address to you if you want to. Otherwise, feel free to jump in as and when you want. We certainly hope for you to enjoy the roundtable discussion. So let's collaborate with one another, be an inspiration, and most importantly, be inspired too. Okay, let's kick off today's program with a panel discussion, as I mentioned, just to set a scene for the roundtable discussion afterwards. So I want to do some introduction about our couple of guest speakers for this panel discussion. Our first guest speaker brings 20 years of global experience in tech and services. So Akim Granzen is Forrester's principal analyst, and his research focuses on analytics and data-driven transformation. So Akim is based in Singapore, and he has been serving CIOs across the Asia Pacific. And joining Akim at this panel discussion is ServiceNow's IT transformation and solution lead for Asia. So Daniel Ng has broad experience in IT operations management, IT asset management, IT business management, automation, DevOps, and agile solutions. Lastly, our discussion moderator of today's session. So Asohan Aradurai was previously the editor of the Star's popular InTech Pullout until 2005, before being posted to Bangkok as the editor of Asia News Network. In 2012, Asohan formed Digital News Asia with other industry-renowned technology journalists. So Asohan is now the senior news editor of Star Media Group. So, right, Asohan, if you're ready, over to you.
Let's go straight into it. Akim, we'll start with you first. Can you tell us about what you see as the main trends in and developments in technology, modern technology operations, and perhaps even a rundown of some of the key technologies you've seen emerging in the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ashwan, and good morning from my side as well. To everybody, thanks for joining. I think what we see on the highest level is really a shift in culture and operations of technology observation. That's supported by technology. So just I'll give you a few examples of what we're seeing happening, and that is actually shaping the way that what we would describe modern technology operations. One trend that we really see is that integrated build and run teams will thrive and start to adopt a product thinking. Now that's a culture shift. That's a way of a different way of collaboration, a different way of approaching the task at hand. Teams like this, the cross-functional teams, are more efficient, more effective, because they can work interactively. They can essentially adopt a natural approach. And the product thinking is another key trend that we see in terms of essentially keeping and the objective of infrastructure as a product that is being managed, that is being developed by a team. So that's a different approach. That's a different mindset, really, and that's one of the key trends that we see is that culture shift or that mindset shift really that we see. Another thing that's really important, which all of us obviously are in the middle of, is that resilience will become a key objective. So that what that means is we move away from something like disaster recovery, which is like a single point event, and that gives way to business resilience, which is ongoing mid to long term changes. That's another shift of objectives that we have for technology operations, because we have to adapt the way that we work. We can't prepare for a single event anymore. We have to be more agile. We have to be ongoing. We have to ensure the resilience of the infrastructure and the business. Because what we see is that resilience, if that's a cooperating principle, that will allow the firms to actually become a competitive advantage. Now that's pretty obviously in the situation that we are in, but that's something I think that we will keep even beyond the pandemic. That's the shift to resilience as a key objective. And another thing that we see is essentially how we are linking or how we are shifting service management to address more business outcomes and use cases, and actually vice versa, because the shift has happened where the capabilities beyond technology services are actually really impacting the business use cases, the business operations, etc. And what we're starting to see is essentially the practices and objective settings that actually link service management back to the business objectives that are driven by it and the business use cases. So it's not an internal intermediate metric anymore of uptime or availability. It's what is the effect on the business. So that whole thing links back into service management. So it's really spans end to end now. That's another trend that we see. That means that handling incidents will actually become more important in the way that they're being looked at, that they're being remedied. That's another shift that we see. The practices and the smooth handling of incidents will take greater precedence, because we have to support the business at the end. That's clearly linked for all to see.
All right, thanks. Daniel, I would like to go back to what Akim said, especially, I mean, I want your view on this as well, in terms of the three developments, but Akim spoke a lot about business resilience and how do you juggle that between the need to innovate, to meet, and he spoke about business outcomes as well, right? But
Yes.
business outcomes, or rather business targets, may evolve, right? This is a very fast changing world. So how do you juggle resilience with the need to innovate?
All right. Again, thank you all again for joining us here. I'm glad to be here to be sharing this together from ServiceNow. And you know, for that juggling, I think Akim already actually talks about the whole thing very well, right? The juggling today really is about how do you balance between not just resilience itself, because organizations are not just focusing just on resilience itself will not really help. I think increasingly with regards to the multiple conversations we have with the customers worldwide, customers are increasingly looking at the ability to actually juggle between or balancing between agility and resilience, which is trying to do both at the same time. And this is where part of what Akim was speaking about in terms of the integrated build, product-based thinking, right? We from ServiceNow would actually extend it further by looking at it from an integrated plan, build, run, right, all the way with closed loops for the whole team that actually looks after a product by itself. So we call this view in what ServiceNow sees it as more AI powered service operations. The whole idea is actually to integrate the service management side of things together with operations management, right? All done on a single platform. So this is where we see use cases like maybe ability to predict change risks, possibly from a service management change management ticket, link it to the operations side of the issue, which is understanding what are the potential service impacts coming from a potential change that is needed, so that the so-called change advisory board or any of the executives looking at the risk of a change could determine what to do, right? Whether we have already mitigated the changes. And of course, there are other use cases like, for instance, unauthorized change, probable root cause. All these are all the use cases that are made possible when teams work together all the way as a product from plan, build, and run basis. And so we have some customers also who have already benefited from this. So examples would be like Danske Bank, right, who had actually achieved the business outcome, or maybe looking at removing their silos and combining both service and operations, data and workflows together in a single view. With this, they actually achieve a 6 times improvement in time to restore their services whenever then there's an issue that's there. We also have other examples like Beachbody, who actually also reduces and improves their MTTR through achieving an outcome of 90% reduction in outages through this similar product-based view and approach and integration of all the teams together on a single platform. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks. Going back to what Daniel said, Akim, the need to be agile IT, AIOps, and all that. What does automation and AI bring to IT today? I mean, what makes it different from other technologies over the past few years?
Yeah, that's a good question. And what we see is really that well, AI accelerates the benefits that we already had when we adopted automation within processes to make them more efficient and more effective. This is actually still, or say until most recently, that was the main impact, the main use case for AI. So AI plus automation, you could call that intelligent automation. That's what that's seen a lot, and that's really started to change essentially how IT operation. That's where AIOps comes in. So if you look back, essentially AIOps is really the logical evolution of using data to improve the management of technology and IT operations in general. If you look back, what we had, say, like the history of tools, so to speak, like the first generation of tools was really descriptive, like a summary or a dashboard that allowed you to see what actually has happened. Where were you last month with your outages and your service KPIs? But that evolved to diagnostic tools for applications, for infrastructure, etc., where you could see, okay, there's something happened here, something happened just now, so that gives you a bit more timely response time. But what automation, AI, and particularly intelligent automation brings is that the new generation of solutions in this area actually provides prescriptive capabilities, automation like self-healing or self-remediation. That's I think when we make this step from a set of tools that we're using to a technology platform, because that requires a platform that's integrated with multiple capabilities, that can bring in automation, that can bring in AI, that essentially links to all the other tools or systems that we have. So that's, I think, where we really, with those platforms for IT operations, that's where we really see that this closing loop for autonomous enterprises. In a way that we can now start to build out, say, approaches that allow the teams to focus more on the actual development, rather than essentially focus on pure maintenance or actually working through cases. So that's I think the key change that automation and AI bring. It also means that we're looking at an entire different approach to the technology that runs us, that fuels us, and that's a platform approach versus a tools approach.
Aswan, we lost your audio.
Sorry. Yeah, we have a question. Someone raised a hand on the floor. LE.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I think Akim mentioned about infrastructure as a product. I would like to know a little bit more. What is the significant difference for infrastructure as a product I think pretty much we are well aware of, familiar with infrastructure as a service. So when we say infrastructure as a product, what is significantly different?
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll start with that, and Daniel, please chime in as well. So it's essentially it's a bit shortened version in infrastructure as a product. You could say that it's about teams that are responsible for infrastructure should adopt a thinking of a product team, i.e. product manager, product development, etc. It's not necessarily it's the same as infrastructure as a service. Now it's infrastructure as a product. It's essentially infrastructure teams should adopt a product thinking. That means they own a product that they then essentially sell internally to their customers within the organization. It's not a technology thing. It's a mindset. It's a cultural thing. Where the teams are responsible for developing and maintaining an as good as possible product. They know who their customers are. They know what their customers' needs are, and they develop and improve the product along the way. So it's a culture. It's an approach. It's not a technology as such. Hope that helps to clarify it. It's a way of thinking about it, not the different way of technology.
I would even go as far to say that when we look at product, we're not just thinking in terms of just the infra level, right? When teams are formed together, they actually would coalesce around a single, maybe even a critical service that the company is offering, and that will involve different layers: the application layer, the middleware layer, the infra. What it is we are actually thinking about, a lot of customers even are thinking about instead of organizing by the different app team and so on and so forth, everything is a single product-based view for the organization, which is where the product view would not just consist of the infra, but the different teams who traditionally will be different people from different domains, and even from different functions like plan, build, and run. They are all put together into a single team, so that they co-own the outcomes, the KPIs, the metrics together. And what it does for them is the executive can look at it as a product outcome we need to achieve for the market itself, and they can work together from that angle. So that's the mindset that Akim was referring to.
Yeah.
Does that address your question, Ali?
Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
All right. We have another question, I think, from Stephen now. Can you also, sorry, I should have asked this of you, Ali, introduce yourself and your role in the company before you ask your question? So
okay, my name is Stephen Lau. I'm now I think effective September, I'll be officially formally CRO of Affin Bank, right? Before Affin Bank, I was in big data analytics as well, right? So I work with a lot of fintechs and data science on various projects and all that. So I suppose what is mentioned is that it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of failure I see in banks, right, especially when they embark into these projects, is that the infrastructure and the people are not prepared for the outcome, right? For example, like what Daniel has mentioned, right? You need people who have certain set of skills and certain way of looking at things and all that. Take an example, right? For bank today, right? You have people who sell housing loan, car loans, and all that. But when I moved to Volksbank Australia, right, one of the first fintech in Australia, when you go to Volksbank in Australia, Sydney, right, they be talking about customer journey. Nobody talks about housing loan, car loan, and personal loans, right? And the way the team are being structured is very different, right? They don't put themselves in product pools like car loan and all that, right? They're talking about each segment. Okay, this department, we talk about this initiative about people who wants to come to Australia to study, and this initiative talks about certain segments of the society that we want to serve and all that. So it's a very different kind of mindset, right? And then to get into the operational efficiency, you need to have your data to be ready, right? You cannot work on unstructured data, or you got no proper data governance. So it's very difficult for you to move to that AI, or in my 20-30 years experience, we call it parameterized landing, right? Now people call it AI to make it sexy, to say that, oh yeah, I have a way of how to do my landing and all that, right? To me, like, if you don't have a very structured product programs with very structured, clear guidelines and all that, you try putting that in the AI, you get nothing out from it, you say.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to have a very structured way of doing things and a proper methodology to see how to make that change as soon as possible.
But Daniel, Stephen has raised some real concerns here. But wouldn't AI help you create these structures as well? Aren't the new technologies there ready for you to make use of to address these kind of challenges as well?
I think that's a very valid point too, and it is true too, right? But we see customers who struggle with AI is when they see AI as a technology instead of as an enabler, right? So what they do when they see AI as a technology means they're just trying to say, look, have we incorporated AI in this, in that, in whatever they're trying to do, right? What's the outcome? What are we really trying to do? Because AI itself as a domain is really vast, right? So that is why from a ServiceNow perspective, our AI approach is always very use case focused, and from there on, our customers could actually make use of the various different function and capabilities that deliver very specific outcome that we see addresses 80% of the use case. Not the most advanced stuff that maybe you need a high investment in data scientists. Probably not now, but we will get to there. But I think the first things first is whenever we look at AI, we're gonna see like how can we address the 80% of the business problems that our customers are facing, right? So this is where we also talk about the fact that we have some examples, maybe examples of service automation. We are talking about utilizing virtual agents that actually understands the natural language processing so that they can interact in a very capable way with the users that actually come request for things, right? Instead of trying to hit only certain keywords that has to be there in order for that request to be fulfilled. Users will be very frustrated, right? So of course, we are not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's a journey. The NLP algorithm itself is actually evolving very strongly, and that's where we have very specific use cases like password reset. Very simple thing, but in our engagement with customers worldwide, surprisingly, and I guess for all the executives here, it's not surprisingly, right? Password reset is like one of the highest percentage use case, right? It's simple, but it really takes up the time. So why not just automate as much of this through automation? And another example I can bring here is, for instance, if you're looking at events that customers are actually receiving all the day, they have like 10, 20, 30 tools that they are in the environment, right? And again, with all these kind of things that are there monitoring, so-called, they have the most advanced tools that are out there. They are still struggling because each team is operating in silo. The network team is receiving their network alerts. The application team is doing their own monitoring. The infra team is having 2-3 tools also doing their own monitoring. But there's nothing that actually ties everything together, because ultimately, if you look at a critical service, everything is related to one another. Nothing is operating in silo really. So that is where capabilities like fingerprinting and mapping, event and alert correlation, all these together with the algorithms built into it are actually designed to help customers to reduce event and incident noise.
Yeah, I think this is Hakim. Stephen, to your point, I think it's really important to balance investments that we have in the investments in technology with investments in education, the cultural shift, and building skills. And that's I think something that sometimes we overlook, that both sides are equally important. Say if you implement a platform like ServiceNow, that doesn't change your culture overnight, but it gives you the opportunity to work different, to change your culture. But it's still an effort that you have to make in order to change the way that people are working, or the way that people are interacting with your teams. So that's I think it's a culture, it's a shift that's driven or supported by technology, but it's still a program that you have to that you have to run essentially alongside the tech implementation.
Correct. You're right, because one of the things that we do in my previous work is that we do a course which is called data literacy. Right? We feel that
Exactly,
that particular
something
course
like this.
is the most important fundamental course across from the board all the way downwards.
Yeah, that's what it's a book is just a doorstep if nobody can read. That's exactly, it's in the data world, that's data literacy.
I'd like to go back to what Hakim was speaking about before as well. You know, how the technology has evolved from previously we looked at report generation, what went wrong, and you can see what went wrong, data use. And you spoke about how now it's becoming prescriptive from diagnostic and then moved on to diagnostic to predictive. Daniel, are we going to reach a stage where it's predictive, that AI will allow you to actually, you know, give you a heads up on what can go wrong and how to prepare for it with all the data at your disposal? I'm sorry, this is a bit off.
No, actually, it's great. Actually, in fact, you know, within ServiceNow, right, similar to what Forrester Akin had just highlighted, right? We also talk about a 4-step maturity journey for most of our customers, right? Again, that is not a ServiceNow concept. That is also from all the various analyst reports that we've gathered so far, right? And you know, a lot of customers are also going through those maturity journey, right? And when it comes to predictive, definitely, right, there are already a number of use cases that are there, right? But of course, for a lot of customers, you need to make sure that there are certain baselines that needs to be addressed. So from a predictive capability, right, I'd say from a ServiceNow point of view, what we see is we've already started offering technologies where by ingesting logs from customers' logs itself, right? We are able to actually provide utilizing AI and the various algorithms. We can actually what I call baseline the metrics without the IT trying to actually actively do all kinds of IT work to baseline or create the metrics from the logs itself. The outcome really is from this is the fact here is customers are able to just utilize this technology that is built in to actually address, like I always said, 80% of the use cases would be addressed, which means with this itself, the log analytics will be able to actually give a heads up. So we have examples like in a US retailer. What they had with us was they actually our customer, and they were testing out this technology. During the time when they were testing out this technology, and this customer actually had a P1 issue, and it's an online retailer. So what happens was during that issue itself, right, they actually lost about $500,000 US dollar transaction because of that outage. But subsequently, what they did, they actually went back and take a look at the technology of what we had, because they were still in testing phase. They found that this kind of predictive technology already give them a early warning saying that, look, we think something could be wrong here. I think your IT team better start taking a look at this to see whether it's a valid issue or not, right? So immediately they said, look, if they had already had this in production, they were already easily recovered that $500,000, because the problem itself is easily resolvable if somebody were to be able to take a look at it ahead of time.
That's good to know. We have. Sorry, someone said something.
Sorry, Paswan, may I just add something on what Daniel actually mentioned? Because I think he raised a very valid point, and it's a root issue, right? And that is if somebody actually looks at it, right? And here, this is the intrinsic problem that we have with whether it's AI or automation, and they're two very different things you have to actually appreciate as well. But the core of the issue is at two levels, right? One is when you are looking at, be it digitization, automation, AI, or whatever the sexy buzzword is these days, right, including agile, the reality is it has to be underpinned to two things. One is the strategy of the business. There has to be a clarity on it. Arguably, maybe three things, right? One is that strategy. Two, I think, as Stephen mentioned, literacy. the CEO itself has to be literate in IT effectively to understand how this effectively is going to tie in together between the back end and the front end to the customer and ultimately delivering the business value, right? So if you actually have a CEO or a CEO that doesn't understand this level of base, you will have a problem because it will then go down to the lowest common denominator, which is an IT guy doing ad hoc stuff. The third thing, and I think this is where, may not necessarily be a popular view, is it needs to actually be open data access. It has to be open systems. We have to move away from closed proprietary vendor technologies, right? Because what that then results in is the body of knowledge actually sits with the vendor and not with the business. And the only way to deliver value to the customer is if the business understands how the technology then translates to value. And the customer can be two things, right? The end user consumer or the internal customer in which it's providing value for. And if you don't realize this, you're never really going to actually achieve the kind of pervasive platform-based AI ops that we're envisioning a business to actually be, right? What you'll go down to is effectively just ad hoc use case scenarios like fix or automate reset password type scenarios, right? Which is great. It does fix some things, but you will never really unlock the overall potential of what the business can do, much less stay relevant, and therefore then the resilience goes down, right? And that's really, I think, the 3 to 4 key things that we really need to actually ensure.
Interesting. Yeah, no, thanks. That was interesting viewpoint as well. I haven't heard the term open systems used for so many years. It reminds me of the old Unix versus proprietary days.
And so at the end of the day, right, we still have Oracle all over the place, and even Oracle half the time doesn't actually know how Oracle functions anymore, right? They've actually overlaid a lot of the stuff down to you have so many different people, but what really creates the problem as a result is even if the business wants to accelerate and transform itself, it is handcuffed by legacy closed proprietary systems, right? And then whatever the vision is, you then have to increase your cost by building intermediation orchestration layers, right? In order to fix and interact with each other, instead of effectively ensuring every system has an API that any system can talk to, and that actually reduces the cost of AI and automation in itself, right? Otherwise, what you may find out is actually cheaper to hire somebody in Asia at low manual labor costs, right? And do the job instead of an AI, right?
Yeah, the AI.
I know Daniel wants to pitch in here, especially since I think ServiceNow promises. I mean, this point that Sashi brought up about the body of knowledge resting with the client rather than the vendor, and whether you'd like to address that. Also, Sashi, I have to say, I mean, you've made a very strong thing there about the CEOs needing to be digital savvy. What do they say these days? Every business is a technology business. And right. But Daniel, to you, and about the need for the body of knowledge resting with the client and your.
Sure. That definitely, so you made a very good point in terms of the 3 points, right? The strategy of the business, right? So that means we are really looking at the outcomes, and under the CIOs being the glue, right, between the IT and the business, tying everything together. That is really key. Your third point in terms of open data access is basically what we at ServiceNow also believes in, right? that means whatever that is there is not just a black box. And having like you said, multiple APIs, all ways of accessing within ServiceNow itself, within our data structure, we also introduce what we call the common services data model. And this is an open documentation that's available, such that any of our partners, customers can actually understand what is the structure and how they are actually organized. So with API calls and with all kinds of automation, you can interact, whether be it internally to ServiceNow or externally to any other tools that are needed there. And as to the body of knowledge, it's definitely agreed that you want to have a lot more of that knowledge within the internal team, right? But there is a limit into how much can be there, right? So that is where the technology and the algorithms from what ServiceNow has actually utilized to augment whatever your team has. That means what they do is they can actually focus on, say, 80% of the typical use case is already handled through platform technologies. Maybe that very special 20% is where where it delivers the right business outcomes and aligns to the strategy of the business, will be focused on solving that kind of problem too. So that is one way that we are also looking at it too. And of course, we will continuously want to seek feedback from the overall wider customers and industry alike to make sure that we can continue to evolve this as a partnership together with the market.
Yeah. So just to add to that point, Daniel, I agree. It has to be a partnership. But when you're talking about the use cases, right? If you're talking about 80% of the use cases, I mean, my view is this, right? 40% of that has to be handled internally by the business itself, with an overflow being managed by vendors. Or arguably, you could use it as an injection. Just bear with me while I make sure I get my power sorted out as well. Yeah, and the rationale behind that is the guy can't fix the 20% complex systems if he doesn't know how to deal with 40% of the simple systems, right? And this is about ensuring that the body of knowledge sits within the organization in itself. They have to learn and know how to do it in order to actually push vendors to provide their most. And I see this, we're not reflecting with ServiceNow, of course, right? It's just in general. The learnings has to be internalized. And what I've seen on the network side, and this is not, I don't speak for Axiata, just to be clear, this is just my personal view around my history around it, right? When we've actually gone around this whole concept of outsourcing technology, right? It creates a void where people don't know how to actually manage the core business portion of things itself. And IT is a key component in today's business, irrespective of how you see it, right? Even if you structure it as an agile team-based structure with a product focus kind of view, which is what Achim was actually alluding to, and therefore the focus is still the consumer, you still actually need to know how the backend actually works. And there needs to be that roadmap of that backend that is tied to the strategy. That can never happen if the guys internally don't understand technologies in itself. And that's why there has to always be that positive tension between a vendor and the in-house IT team, where both guys need to actually have that strong sparring session, because that's when you get the best out of each other. For that, in-house IT has to elevate beyond just IT ops and outsourcing of these activities to really being true DevOps level, right? Because it's only then can you incorporate automation and AI.
So basically, you need to own the product.
Yeah, you definitely need to own both the product and have unfettered access to technology. I wouldn't necessarily say own the technology, but you have to have unrestricted access to it. That means if you want to actually change something so that you can customize it towards your strategy, you should be able to do so. And that's why open systems is really a core way of moving forward. But I think a lot of vendors have moved that way, albeit a few that still are resisting that. But yeah.
Yeah,
we have a question from, sorry. Yeah, Daniel, you were saying.
Yeah, just a short thing, right? I think I agree with Sashi. I think if you look at it, right, today, right, I mean, in my 20-30 years experience in banking, right, the problem with banking is also that, all our IT folks, right, has become vendor managers.
Yes.
Right, they don't do the IT stuff anymore already, right? They're just managing vendors. And surprisingly, right, if you look at the numbers of IT people we have in the banks, right, they are still the same. Right? That's the reality of things today.
Yeah.
But that is why Sashi, you hit it straight at the heart, because even not just worldwide, even regionally, we've seen quite a number of customers who started engaging us, also talking about how to move things back from outsourcing to insourcing, right? And again, it's not a testament to say that the outsourcers are not doing their job, but they realize that they need to own not just the technology, not per se, not the technology, but they need to own the data. They need to understand how to make use of the data, right, to help drive the outcome for the business. And this is agile, because on a like 5-year, 10-year outsourcing contract, everything is locked down already. Every single activity that has to be done is going to be agreed for the next 10 years. Well, this is not the market we are in now, right? Things are changing now. If you say this is how we do it, this is what it is, right? 3 months down the road, a lot of things would have changed already. And that is why by owning the data and the platform, the team itself can continuously innovate, but yet still make use of some of the vendor capabilities, technologies to actually help them achieve their outcome.
Hey, I think Terence has a question. You've raised your hand. Terence, can you introduce yourself and chip in?
Sure. So, hi guys, I'm Terence Tan. I'm from British American Tobacco. From a GBS point of view, I'm IT as well. I look after the GBS, the regional GBS business unit. In BAT, in Malaysia, we got 4 business units. The one that in the used to call Roughness roundabout, that's no longer a roundabout. It's the end market. We call it end market, the commercial area, the sales and marketing office. Obviously, we no longer have a factory, and there's also the business services, global business services that we have in KL, situated in Sunway. So I look after as a head of IT and business partner there. So happy to be here. I totally resonate in terms of what you mentioned, Sashi and guys. I think of what you mentioned. I think, but my point of view is, yes, with digital transformation, there's a need to know your data, right? And there's a need to know that what Daniel is saying, to understand your process as well. That's why there's a conundrum whereby in the old days, we say we outsource what matters and outsource the technology, what you said, but we shouldn't outsource our knowledge. Yeah, we shouldn't outsource our knowledge, and that's the conundrum we have right now. But over time, Stephen, is it someone mentioned about everyone being a vendor manager, even myself, everyone is becoming a service and vendor manager of different vantage point in many, or business relationship management, whatever you call it right nowadays, right? I think first in IT, and I think Akim has mentioned a culture. We first have to change our mindset as well. I think I personally we first have to say that we are part of the business. We act like owners, right? We regardless of whether the other functions think that we are back office or we're not. We first have to change our mindset. Hey, we are part of the business. We are part of the payroll, right? Although some of us maybe outsource certain parts, but we are there to make it simpler. The main thing is about simplification, right? That's what we are there for, to simplify what the business can do to get the right outcome and value with digital transformation, right? And that's why we are there for. And I mean, we're working on ServiceNow on some things as well right now. But of how we can simplify the experience, right? Because and make it easier for the business team not to be overly worried about what is an incident versus a problem ticket versus all the other stuff. So that's why we are there for. I think, and it's very tough because sometimes it's hard to change their mindset as well. That we are back office, and that's why in GBS as well, people think we're always back office, but we're trying to drive a culture, what we call the digital DNA culture, whereby it's a one office kind of environment where we understand what we need to do and we're still trying to do a product mindset outcome, because it's very hard to do a product mindset with metrics organization and outsourced parties and everything else. So we still have our challenges, but at the end of the day, I do echo the open source system kind of idea, but I think BAT being in the controversial industry that we have, we can't really open up our architecture that much. We can't really go use open source. I think it depends on the architectural risk appetite in the organization, right? So we go for cloud-based, but we really control and we make sure. But the challenge now we're going to have is, if we go a lot of this automation and cloud-based solutions and everywhere, how do we manage this portfolio before it becomes a technical debt? Right? right? That's the challenge also eventually we have, because every business will may not go for IT, may go for shadow IT because of decentralized sometimes, and they were like, oh, they bring in all these solutions, and then finally when we found out about it's too late, they already implemented it, which is not right lah, by right, but things happen, right? So that's where we have, I think, I do echo certain things. I think my question would be also at the same time for both anyone else here, I think, is how do we measure and how do we manage that technical debt eventually, right? Of course, we talk about a lot of solution, but what is the key instances or example use case? Or maybe ServiceNow can help us as well.
Yeah.
We haven't got to that level yet, but we are still implementing. We're still only looking at ServiceNow for IT, and then I'm leading the HR part and finance part later. But we just started IT. There's a separate team that does that. But maybe that's a question to both Akim and
yeah. I think we'll let
thanks.
Daniel go first because he's been trying to jump off his chair. I think he's got an answer.
Yes.
Oh, no. I definitely have a point of view already, but I think, it's good to start from a more wider non-ServiceNow view. So I thought this would be good for Akim to kickstart this.
Okay, sure. Happy to do that. Yeah, I think in general, what we are seeing is how do organizations manage technical debt successfully? It's really it's like a portfolio management approach really that we see it's the most successful, because it's really not one size fits all. You have to be honestly be prepared sometimes to take the less optimal route if we're looking at technical debt, simply because that's the most practical solution. So I have had discussions with a large global bank that has a key operations here in Singapore, and they essentially they looked at a large scale digital transformation. Cloud transformation was part of that. And they had to understand which of their systems actually would move to the cloud, which would be rewritten, which would be lift and shift, which would just be kept as is, because simply the cost or the impact of doing anything with it was simply too high. And that led them to really like this to this portfolio approach, where in the end, yes, they had to swallow a pill for some of their systems that were not optimal, but the impact of changing that would have been too high. Now the portfolio management means that, okay, yes, you accept that on one side, you actually say your debt is higher than you would want it to be, but how can you balance it out across other applications, right? Is there something that you maybe you do lift and shift a bit earlier than you had planned, to that helps you reduce a bit of a footprint? Or you could say, okay, is this something that we can rewrite in parallel for a cloud native platform, for example? So I think that's the portfolio approach, because you will never, if you look at individual applications or systems, you will never be able to optimize all of them individually. But if you look across, you will actually be able to take chances and say, okay, yeah, we have to live with that. But on the other hand, to balance that, here's something that we could do more or that we could do faster.
Kind of like an ecosystem outlook, right?
Yeah, it is, because you don't look, well, of course you don't look at systems separately within your organization. It's all working within one organization. But say the technical debt, it doesn't make sense to do it system by system by system, because then you will optimize. You don't really optimize for the whole, and
Yeah.
that's something that we see, because you won't be able to do that. You have to accept certain drawbacks in certain areas. That's the reality, I guess.
Okay, Daniel.
Yeah. Akim, thanks so much for that. I think you hit it straight on what I will be highlighting too. I think that is very important, because from ServiceNow, we've also seen customers adopting ServiceNow, right, for many years already, and we have customers who because they have many different departments, and certain departments have louder voice, and so what happens was there's actually a lot of customization that's made on it. So eventually, after several years, they find that they've accumulated so much technical debt because of all the customized variations for this BU and customized variations for that BU and so on and so forth. They can't keep up. There's just way too much cost and time spent in maintaining and upgrading all those. So one of the customers I can actually share and talk about is actually Shell, right? So if you Google up on Shell, right, and ServiceNow, there is also a recent article, I think probably a couple of months ago, right, that they've upgraded ServiceNow, but they've replaced ServiceNow, right? The keyword is replace ServiceNow, but it's replacing ServiceNow with ServiceNow. So the the key thing here is this: they started out with lots of different customizations with different views wanting different things, and over time, Shell realizes that, as what Akim says, portfolio view is actually a lot more important, right? And in order to achieve the kind of outcome, they actually look for what are the 80% of the use cases that we can drive with this, and move all and as much as possible out of the box. And they are still doing their journey right now, but in between of that journey of what they've done, they've really seen a lot of value coming out of that, because a lot of processes are now more standardized, but yet it still fulfills most of the business requirements. So for the smaller ones that they can't really fulfill it, they like as Akim said, take a look at it and look at it from how you can actually fulfill those, maybe through a different means, or a different way of approaching the whole thing, if not fitting into a standardized view. So that is basically how our customers sometimes have to go through that journey, whether be it with ServiceNow or any other product, right? To reduce technical debt, you want to look at utilizing as much of what the platform is offering, right? With a view towards, is that out of the box view really delivers 80% of the business requirements.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. I'm going to now pick on some of the quiet ones to help drive this discussion along. I would like to ask Vijay Kumar, who is the General Manager of IT Delivery, because we have been talking a lot about IT delivery. Vijay, are you on from Malaysia Airports? Okay, no. Or perhaps we'll go to Datuk Iswaran from AmBank Group. I'd like to hear your point of view as the Chief Operating Officer of the AmBank Group. You sit at a level above and you're in charge of a lot of things. What do you see your challenges? And how do you think technology like ServiceNow or any kind of AI technology can help you?
I think the video is bad, so I'm not on the video. No, the concept is, can you hear me? The concept is interesting. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you put your camera on?
Interesting, but okay.
Hi, morning.
It goes into buffering, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Morning.
Okay.
It gets into buffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we see you.
No, but as I say, the concept is interesting, but I'm skeptical for the same reason as what just now I think Mr. Shashi was saying something about the really knowing your technology, because I heard Daniel saying that you kind of pushing into this AI tool, logs, etc. I'm from a bank, and many of my systems, especially the critical systems, are very proprietary based. Even my own IT guys can't decipher these logs, and they need vendors' help. So I'm just trying to see how will, because the AI tool is only as good as how much you teach it, right? There must be some kind of learning that it takes, and it doesn't just inherit intelligence on its own, right? So I'm just trying to understand, because I'm quite keen to look at from the angle of resiliency and how you really bring down the downtime, because I think that Daniel was saying that one of his customers downtime came down by 90% because prediction or predictive, maybe this tool can raise rate flags, etc. But that's why I say the concept is very interesting. Yes. Of course, we use a lot of tools, etc., like to give us the same kind of warning before something goes down. But even then, system still goes down. And coming from a bank, I think Stephen will understand. We have these Bank Negara requirement where your critical systems cannot be down for more than 4 hours in a year, not in a year, in 12 months rolling calendar period, right? That means the rolling 12. So it's a very high, it's a very tough call. So obviously we are looking into tools that will help us achieve this objective. So that's why I was quite interested to understand, and as I said, the content is interesting. But I kind of resonate with Shashi's thing, because it's really how will work if my guys can't even siphon the logs themselves. How can they teach? If I'm going to depend on vendors to teach, are they going to share their proprietary logs, proprietary these things to another vendor like what's ServiceNow? These are the questions. As I say, that's interesting but skeptical. But it'll be interesting to see how it has worked elsewhere. But we're just saying, I agree, automating password reset and all that. I think I understand this is really a lot of people are already gone into automation of resetting passwords, etc. And you can really see even in your Shopee and Lazada, you lose your password, it teaches you how to reset it. So, but I think it's more, for me, it's more looking into resiliency, how do we. So that's where I am.
Okay.
Struggling to
Thank you
understand.
for feedback. Daniel, would you like to just assure
That is actually a very good point, right? And a great point, in fact, from Dato' Isra, and thank you for that, right? And as for the knowledge, right? Really, that is an interesting thing, because today what we see also is this, right? IT can have all the knowledge, but increasingly the pace of the technology that's moving today, even if you have maybe 1,000 or even more IT folks who are very, very knowledgeable, they may not be able to scale to the business requirements already. And this is where AI comes in. So basically what AI does is AI is able to process huge volumes, right, for a very specific use case, thereby allowing the IT team to actually maintain it's irony, because they maintain their own knowledge in terms of that specialized use cases and the requirements, where they can actually have more time to research more deeply to solve very specific company problem, right? That affects a certain business objectives, right? That the technology, right, as a 80% use case is not able to address today, because you already pointed out, AI itself, log ingestion, the technology itself is not a magic bullet. It cannot take in everything, and like you said, it only knows what you teach it. So what we do is we reteach it what we understand worldwide from all our customers in terms of what is the most common stuff that we see, right? And hence, a lot of the IT already know about how to do it. It's just that the volume and the velocity of data coming in is already no longer viable. Where we still see customers who are trying to throw the head counts into it to as the business scales, but there's only so much they can do. At one point, they had to say, okay, look, we need to do more than that, because this is just keeping the lights on. So what they do is having all this technology in place to actually help with this, and so the team itself can actually invest in the skill set to actually deepen on the other areas that really matters, and that's not addressable today readily out of the box from the technology.
Yeah, I would add to that, Daniel. I think that's a very good point, because what we see is, so what's some of the major benefits of that in, say, in modern technology operations or AIOps, is that it starts to free up talent with that automation. I mean, you mentioned that the infamous password thing, but it's true. You need to say, you need to free up the people to actually do, say, more valuable work, and that's say it's essentially like a step by step approach. Once you have that, once you get some of the most tedious things out of the way, like password resets, you actually have more time for your people to do something that can add more value rather than just being process focused. That also helps the change in the culture, I think, because people don't see themselves just as like quick fixes, they see themselves as starting to see themselves as adding some value simply because they can spend more time on that rather than just going through those mundane tasks. So I think that's I'd say once you start going on that step, I think that's where you see a journey towards that shift. So I think that's the big change that AI and automation in this context can bring. Not that it will change everything on day one, but it allows you to gradually shift the focus. While you understand more about AI and how automation actually works, it gives you a head start in my view in terms of actually doing that, aligning or assigning people to do some of the tasks that actually drive more value than just a simple quick fix.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks, Akim.
Just to
Yeah.
add on to Akim's view, right? I think a couple of years back, we started a freelancing gig economy platform, right, which is called Alpha Zeta. I think that the trend, like what Akim is saying, right, is definitely correct, because we have people who come into the freelancing gig economy platform saying that they do not want to work for any organizations, let alone banks, right? Because the technology changes is very slow. So these guys, they want to be on the gig freelancing economy so that, you know, they always meet with customers who wants the latest technology that they can find in the market.
Yeah, that has changed as well. Okay, yeah, we've actually run a bit ahead of time, over time already. But before we sign off, I'd like to bring a completely different perspective. And I see Dato Megat is here from Tenaga National. Sir, can we ask you to give us your point of view from a very business perspective of how you see the technology landscape and emerging technologies? How do they address your business targets? How important are they?
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Sorry, I'm joining a bit late because of some communication issue this morning. Yeah, I think probably the perspective that we have, at least from the business of Tenaga Nasional, we see this technology driven business will basically anchor the future, and we know well that data is going to be the new economy, as we can see it. The situation, I think, at the moment, we have not got any single company that cracked the code with respect to data monetization. But the good thing is that many companies are going towards that direction, which is good. And from the perspective of Tenaga Nasional, we see this as the two-pronged approach that we are embarking on. First, on the customer front, there are a lot of information with respect to data from the customer, whether it is structured or unstructured data, that can be intelligently processed, so that we can get something out of it, especially for the future growth of our company. The other part is actually on the operation itself, how data and the technology can actually help us getting the operation into the next level. So in terms of the journey that we have today, I must say that we are very much into the initial stage yet. We know that the perspective of data, for example, it will tell us what happened, why it happened, basically descriptive and diagnostic. I think we are very much at that level. There are an element of prediction coming in, a few use cases that coming in with the predictive analytics. And of course, we think that in the future, it can be analytics can give us a prescriptive what should happen. So we are in the journey today, and we have in terms of the operations, the back-end operations, we have introduced some, I'm not sure, maybe my colleagues have mentioned that before. We have introduced, for example, robotic process automation in terms of some of our back-end functions. to help the operations. And so far we are getting both the positive outcome as well as the getting the cost being reduced. So which is a good outcome so far.
Yes.
And true enough, the focus is going to be looking at the operations that the volume is big, the task that human doesn't like to do anyway, and also the situation where human are not the best way to get the outcome. So there are certain, for example, conditions that we look at it into the operation as we introduce more artificial intelligence or robotic process automation or something to that effect into the company. So probably that is my perspective.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that part about humans, not wasting humans is what Akim is referring to when he says, getting your IT system starts to free up your talent, right? I like that phrase, starts to free up your talent.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think we've reached the end of our discussion and we've run over time a bit, and I don't begrudge the time. I think it's been a very interesting discussion. And now leave it to JC to wrap things up a bit.
All right. Thank you, guys, for such a insightful and such an engaging discussion. As I mentioned earlier on, I think my colleague has posted in the chat box as well. We are giving a very special gift to one lucky winner. All you need to do is help us in completing a very short survey. You may scan the QR code that is shown on the screen or go to bit.ly/CxO 18Oct survey, 18 August 18Oct survey. We'll be announcing the one lucky winner of the Pulse Oximeter very shortly. In the meantime, since we just left about a couple of minutes more, so I promise to let you go back to your work in 11:15. So probably, Daniel, would you like to say a few words?
Oh yeah, sure. Thanks so much for all the questions and the interactions. This is really great and valuable, right? And what I've heard so far and what's really resonating, at least from what I've seen, is the Akim's input on the view as a product, right? In terms of how organizations look at things, which Loy is also interested in understanding. I like the sharing on the calls from Sashi, right? It talks about the linking to the strategy of the business, the data literacy part, which is also highlighted by Stephen, right? And then having the ability to make sure that the company still owns the data, which means open data access is very important for the organization. That is without doubt is a very something that I would personally also value much on, right? And the Terence also highlighted on the outsourcing, right? Which Stephen also highlighted that we are all almost like a vendor manager to a certain extent, but I think it's important that everybody I think realizes too that the vendor management is like one of the tasks that is there. And most importantly is if the organization owns the data and the strategy moving forward and are able to actually reduce the technical debt, that is really key, right? And I also think that Dato' Megat's feedback in terms of his TMB approach on the customer fronting and the operational side, I think that's very important because it speaks to the customer journey that a company wants to deliver for the wider market in general. And if TMB is ready on this phase of reorganizing itself to even achieving all this through the various initiatives in technology, I don't think that will be something that's going to be far away as a realization for the business itself.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Before we bid adieu, I'd just like to thank all the participants, our speakers, our two speakers, and all the interesting discussions brought by the participants. I think the key takeaway for me as a non-IT person and non-businessman is that increasingly new technologies are allowing us to look at the organization as a whole, where we need to look at it holistically between the technology and business outcomes and business targets. And previously, vendors used to hold a lot of the power, and that's changing because of technologies like artificial intelligence, which ServiceNow provides as well. But I think that in those days, customers and clients used to use technology to face the future. I think these days, increasingly, we're using technology to help us build that future that we want. And with that, I'd like to thank you all, and until our next time. Thank you.
Thanks much. Have a good day, everybody. Thank
All
you.
Thank you very much.
Hang on for a bit.
Just a sec.
So we're gonna announce the
So,
winner.
yeah, the prize winner. So yeah, thank you very much for those who have completed a survey. I'm very happy to announce the lucky winner of the Pulse Oximeter is Akmal Nirmala of Bank Rocket. Congratulations, Akmal. The ServiceNow crew will be contacting you separately for the arrangement of the gift delivery. All right, we hope you have enjoyed and benefited from today's session. We certainly hope that you are taking away with some thoughts to ponder on in initiating actions that will improve your IT maturity from reactive to proactive. On behalf of Star Media Group, I'd like to thank each one of you for taking time off to join us today. I'd also like to thank our partner ServiceNow for coming with us to make this virtual roundtable a success. As promised, in our appreciation of your attendance, we will be emailing you the e-coffee voucher individually. If you require any assistance, do reach out to us at events@thestar.com.my. We look forward to host you again at the next Star Media Group event. Till then, stay safe, be innovative, keep disrupting. Cheers. Bye. See ya.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye all. Thank
Thanks
you.
all. Bye.